Okay, I'm doing another pre-lecture for day 3, lab activity 1.3. So I'm not exactly doing the assignment, but this is geared towards the assignment to help you out. So I'm going to do some examples so that you can be able to do lab activity 1.3 um, once you get to it. So the plan for doing these, for me doing these pre-recordings, these pre-lectures is for you to be able to look at how I'm doing it and then try to work on it on your own. And then once we have our live Zoom session, you can ask the questions that you need. Let's say you didn't understand something fully. You can ask the questions once I do that lecture for today. You can ask questions. So you can kind of already be prepared for what we're talking about because, like I said on yesterday's video, we are, there is a time limit for Zoom. So you only get the 40 minutes for each Zoom session. Sometimes they extend it for a little longer, but it's definitely not going to be the length that we need to get what we need to get done. Because if we were on campus, that class is 3 hours and 45 minutes. So I would have to keep doing Zoom sessions back to back to back to back. And realistically, everybody is not going to be able to do that anyway, be able to participate like that. Everybody has different time schedules right now. So it will just be a little bit more difficult to get everybody on one accord at the same time. So I feel like it's best to do this so that you can look over the material, kind of be prepared before we do the live session. Um, so like I was saying, we are doing this day 3, and day 3 is focusing on conversions and decimals, but I really want to focus on conversions because that's something you will be doing throughout your whole pharmacy career, is converting within the metric system. So I'm gonna share my screen. And I'm gonna pull up that Word document that I showed you on yesterday's video, the conversion. So these are the most popular conversions that you would see. And this is what I'm gonna be going by. So you can follow along with me by looking at this because I can't have this up and my iPad screen up at the same time. So I need you, for reference, to have this pulled up as well when you're working on the problems with me. Okay, so here are a few problems, and these are just ones that I just kind of made up. Like I said, this is not from your actual assignment on Canvas. This is not lab activity 1.3, but it is asking questions like 1.3, but I'm not doing the actual assignment. We'll do that when we have the live session, but this is just showing me, this is just me showing you how you would work those problems. So you have conversions here. And it's so many ways that a question like this can be asked. This is just a very simple type of question, but normally you would see it in an actual like word problem type of question, like how many milliliters would you need for 2 teaspoons or something like that. But instead of it asking it in word form, word problem format, it just has, 2 teaspoons is equivalent to how many milliliters. This is what this is saying. 2 teaspoons is equal to how many milliliters? So first and foremost, the first thing that you do to tackle this type of problem is think about the conversion that you have that links teaspoons and milliliters. So if you look at your sheet, you know that 1 teaspoon is equal to 5 milliliters. 1 teaspoon is equal to 5 milliliters. So if you can't look at these and automatically think, okay, well, if 1 teaspoon is 5 milliliters, then I double that, then that means 2 teaspoons is 10 milliliters. If you cannot see it like that, we do what's called the cross. So 1 teaspoon equals 5 milliliters. This is my pair. This is what I call my conversion pair. And I'm gonna do the cross. Cross, multiply, and divide. So my conversion pair, I'm gonna write that down. Let's see, I write over here. The conversion pair always goes on the left side of the cross. Oh, I'm writing it so sloppy. Okay, another thing is when you're doing the cross, you always have to have 3 knowns and 1 unknown. There is always three knowns and 1 unknown in order to complete the cross. So like I said, my conversion pair, which is 1 teaspoon equals 5 milliliters, always goes on the left side of the cross. So 1 teaspoon over 5 milliliters, because this is a proportion. And we talked about proportions, I think yesterday on day 2, I believe. There would be day 2's material. So proportion is basically kind of like a fraction or kind of like a division. For every 1 teaspoon, there are 5 milliliters, or for every 5 milliliters, you get 1 teaspoon. So you have to look at it like that. So this right here is my conversion pair, and it went on the left side of the cross. So left side of the cross. 1 teaspoon equals 5 milliliters. And so then this is 2 of the 3, this is 2 of the 3 knowns that I need. So my other known is what it's asking about, 2 teaspoons. You always match the units side by side. You always match the units side by side. So 1 teaspoon, if teaspoon is right here, then 2 teaspoons is gonna go on the right side because we match the units side by side. And then X, that's my unknown. So wherever you don't have a value at, that is your unknown. So X is just a filler until we figure out what it is. So that's my unknown. So then you cross multiply. So whatever is across. So 5 and 2 are across. And then teaspoon and X are across. I normally don't do it that way, but this is how it is. So whatever is across from one another, you multiply. So, wait, no, that looks sloppy. 5 and 2 are across, so you'll do 5 times 2. So 5 milliliters times 2 equals 10. And then you divide whatever is left. So you cross multiply and divide. So if we cross multiply these, then we divide it by 1 teaspoon. So it's just 10. The answer is just 10. Make sure you always put your unit. So we have teaspoon, teaspoon right here. We have milliliters right here. Then this has to be milliliters as well. And we know that because of what it's asking for. It's saying 2 teaspoons is equal to how many milliliters, so we know that our answer should be in milliliters. Our units should be in milliliters. And now I'm gonna do it a different way because I normally don't do it that way because I feel like it's more confusing. Typically, I just do it like that, cross multiply. So if it's a cross, you multiply side by side, you divide. So like I said, 5 and 2 are across from each other. So I multiply that. And 1 teaspoon and X is across from each other too. So I'll do it in a proportion type of way, kind of like algebra. So 1 teaspoon times X, so 1X, 1 teaspoon. And I use the dot for the multiplication symbol because when you use X's, it becomes a little bit confusing because we use X for unknown as a variable. So 5 milliliters times 2 teaspoons equals 1 teaspoon times X. Because like I said, this is a proportion. This cross is just a filler or the way to set it up, but it's really saying this times this equals this times this. That's what it's saying. It's saying 1 times X equals 5 times 2. And you just still solve for X, but you do it in a different format, more geared towards algebra. Is what I did before, but the look is just different. So I'm going to move this down because I ran out of room. Okay. So then you do a bit of algebra. So 5 times 2 is 10. And normally when I do it like this, I normally don't put the units because I want you to see, um, I want you to see, what just popped up, sorry. Want you to see what the units are supposed to be. But normally I don't put it because it looks confusing. So I'll do it, I'll write it again. I'll say 5 times 2 equals 1 times X. Because we should know that our answer is going to be in milliliters. But the reason why I put the units is so that we know what our answer should be in. Okay, so 5 times 2 equals 10. So that leaves us with 10 times 1 times X, which is 1X. But we want to get X on a side by itself because we're solving for X. So we want to get X alone. So in order to do that, we have to do the opposite of what's being done to this 1. So the 1 is being multiplied. So what's the opposite of multiplication? Division. So then we divide by 1. To get X by itself, we divide by 1. But what we do on one side of the equation, we have to do on the other side of the equation. So then it leaves us with 10 over 1 equals X. So basically, 10 equals X, or you can say X equals 10. However, it's still the same, but some people get confused when the answer is on the left side of the equation versus the right, but it's still the same. It just needs to be flipped. You can flip it, but it's still the same. 10 over 1 is just simply 10. 1 is just a filler. But because if you do 10 divided by 1, you're just going to end up with 10. So you could just take that 10 away and have just 10. So I got that same answer here is what I did before. So I'm gonna leave this up for a second and then I'm gonna erase it so that I can do it the first way again. So whatever works for you, if this way works for you and doesn't confuse you, then do it this way. Okay, so now, and I can delete this too. So now I'm gonna do it the way that I do it and that I normally teach, but I like to show other ways on how to work the problem just in case it's confusing. So like I said, if you can't see right off the bat that, okay, I'm just gonna double this because 1 teaspoon equals 5 milliliters. But if I double it because I need 2, then it should just be 10. If you can't see that right off the bat, then do the cross. But the more you do these type of problems, you will be able to look at something like this and just say, okay, that's 10. Because you do it so much, it becomes repetitive. You learn your conversions and things like that. So you won't have to use a calculator. You won't have to set it up like this. You can just look at it and say, oh, well, that's just double that, so it's gonna be 10. All right, so like I said, you cross multiply. So 5 times 2 is 10. And then you divide it by what the last value you have left from the 3 knowns. So you already used up 2 of the knowns. So then you just divide whatever this answer you get right here, which is 10, you divide it by the only other number that you have left, which is 1. So the answer for this is 10. Moving on to number 2. Okay, 380 milliliters is equal to how many ounces? So once again, we look at the relationship between the units, milliliters and ounces. Do we have a conversion that links milliliters and ounces together? We do. It's 1 ounce equals 30 milliliters. So now we have to figure out, okay, if 1 ounce equals 30 milliliters, then how many ounces is 380 milliliters? So we do the cross again. This is our conversion pair. 1 ounce equals 30 milliliters. So I'm going to do my cross. And 1 ounce, 30 milliliters. And then, like I said, you have to have 3 knowns and 1 unknown. So 380 milliliters will go at the bottom right. Why? Because we're matching the units. The units have to match side by side. So if I have milliliters right here, then I have to have milliliters beside it. So my unknown, my X, I'm trying to solve for ounces. So my answer should be in ounces. Okay. So I'm going to cross multiply. So what's across from one another? 1 ounce and 380 milliliters. So 1 times 380 is 380. I probably should do it like this. And remember I said you divide by the only other value you have left. So I've already used 381, so I have 30 milliliters left. So 380 divided by 30. I'm gonna put my units so I know the ounces left. So 380 divided by 30. That gives you 12.66 ounces. So 12.66 ounces. So 380 milliliters is 12.66 ounces. Let me put my I forgot how big. Well, I know I write big, but I thought there would have been enough room for each problem. So I just want to do it the other way, like you would see in algebra. So one times 380, and then 30 times x. So 1 times 380 is 380 equals 30x. And this is how you would see it in algebra, which you do have algebra class that you'll be taking. But this is how you do it in algebra. 30 times x is just 30x. But like we did before, we want to get x on a side by itself. So you perform the opposite sign of what's being done. So 30 is being multiplied by x. So you do the opposite of multiplication, which is division. So I divide by 30 on each side. And because this cancels out, this 30 and this 30 cancels out. I don't think I did that on the first one. But yeah, 30 and 30 cancel out because 30 divided by 30 is 1. So you end up with 1x, which will just be x. So 30 and 30 cancel out. So then you end up with 380 divided by 30 over here. And that gives you what we had, 12.66 equals x. And it's 12.66 ounces. So this is how you would do it the other way. So whatever way works for you, if you just want to cross, multiply, and then divide the only other value that you have left. Okay, moving on to number 3. 75 milligrams is how many grains? Remember, GR is grains. So what relationship do we have that connects milligrams and grains? 1 grain is equal to, and this is the one where it had 3 different options, just depends on the literature. But like I said, I like to use 65 milligrams. But it can be 60 or 64.8. It just depends on the answer choices. If you are giving answer choices and you use 65 and the answer that you get is not in the answer choice, then you have to use either 60 milligrams or 64.8. It just depends. But I like to use 65. Okay, so I'm going to do the cross, my pair. And like I said, the more you do it, you won't even have to set it up like this. You'll be able to just do the, even if you can't do the math on your own, you'll just be able to pull up a calculator and do it without having to do the cross. But for right now, until you get familiar with how the conversion things work, then you can do the cross or the proportion. Okay, so I'm gonna put my conversion pair on the left side of the cross. And then I'm gonna match my unit. So 1 grain is 65 milligrams. So that means 75 milligrams will go on the bottom right because I'm matching my units side by side. So once again, 1 times 75, so cross multiply. 1 times 75 is 75. I don't know why I always do that. And then you divide by the only other thing you have left, which is 65. So 75 divided by 65 is 1.15 grains. 1.15 grains. So then you have to look at it and see. This is where I say make sure the answer makes sense. Make sure your answer makes sense. Okay, let's look at this. 1 grain equals 65 milligrams. So I have 75 milligrams, which is just 10 more than 65. So you know that your answer should be at least 1 and some change, basically. So your answer should be a little over 1 because 65 milligrams equals only 1 grain. And so I have 75 milligrams. So I know that it should at least be more than 1 grain. But it shouldn't be too much more over, just a little bit, but it definitely shouldn't be under. So that's why I say you have to make sure your answer makes sense as well. You can't say, 75 milligrams is 4 grains. That doesn't make sense because 1 grain is only 65 milligrams and I have just above 65. So I know it shouldn't be way above 1. It should be a little bit above 1 and it definitely shouldn't be under 1. So if it is, then you've done some calculations wrong. And let's go back up to look at this to say whether it makes sense or not. Well, the screen is kind of stuck right now. Probably gonna make me redo it. Okay, I'm gonna attempt to move to number 4, but the screen looks like it's frozen. But we're on number 4. So 3 grams, G is grams, is equal to how many milligrams? So what conversion do we have that links grams and milligrams? 1 gram equals 1,000 milligrams. That is my conversion pair. Give me a minute. The thing kind of froze. Okay, here we go. Okay, so 1 gram equals 1,000 milligrams. So I'm gonna do the cross. If you cannot see this right away, if 1 gram equals 1,000 milligrams, then that means 3 grams equals 3,000 milligrams. But I'm still gonna do the cross, and I'm also gonna show you for problems like this, the decimal place value. Okay. My pair goes on the left side. 1 gram equals 1,000 milligrams. I'm asking about 3 grams. So that's gonna go at the top right because I want my units to match. And so my X is here where we're solving for milligrams. One thousand times 3 equals 3,000 over the only thing we have left, which is 1 gram. So 3,000 divided by 1 is just 3,000. So 3 grams equals 3,000 milligrams. This is also called a 1-to-1 ratio. So whenever you have 1-to-1 ratios, whatever it's asking for, that answer is going to be well, no, I can't say that. Never mind. This is not a 1-to-1 ratio. This is a 1-to-1,000 ratio. So excuse me for that misconception. It's not correct. Okay, so the placement value, 3. This is behind every whole number. This is the whole number, but there is always an imaginary decimal. Always an imaginary decimal. Well, I won't even put the 0. I'll just say the imaginary decimal point behind the 3. So I'm going from 3, and then it says 1 gram is equal to 1,000 milligrams. So it's talking about the thousandth place for the decimal. So remember we had this first one will be 10th spot, this second one will be hundredths, and then this third one will be thousand. So you move that decimal 3 places to the right. So 1, 2, 3. Here's your new decimal spot. And so then you fill in those little loops. And so you end up with 3,000 because this is my imaginary decimal place. And we move it 3 places to the right because this is the thousandth spot. So 1,000, we're moving to the right. 1, 2, 3. And when you move to the right, that's when you multiply. When you're multiplying, you move the decimal place to the right. When you're dividing, you move the decimal place to the left. And I talk about that when we do the decimal places and stuff like this. I think that was day 2 material. So the answer is 3. So that's just this decimal place trick is just the easier way or it just depends on what works for you. But it's also a way that you don't have to really use a calculator, waste time using a calculator. You can just do that. Okay, moving on to number 5. 3,840 milliliters equals how many liters? So think about conversions that I have that links milliliters and liters. 1 liter is equal to 3,000 milliliters. That's my conversion pair. One liter is equal to 3,000 milliliters. So I'm going to do the cross. And I'm asking about 3,840 milliliters. So it's going to go on the bottom right. And then my unknown is the top right. Cross multiply. 1 times 3,840 is 3,840. Dividing by the only thing that's left, which is the 3,000. I'm sorry, guys, I'm like, that didn't make sense. This should be 1,000. I'm so sorry. You probably were like, what is she doing? So 1,000. So 3,840 divided by 1,000 is 3.84 liters. 3.84 liters. And I'm gonna do the place value trick. So like I said, we're dividing. So 3,840. Here's my imaginary decimal place right here. And so we're dividing, so that means we're going back to the left. Remember I said if you're dividing, you move the decimal place to the left. If you're multiplying, you move the decimal place to the right. So I'm dividing, so I'm gonna move it 3 decimal places because we are in the thousand spot. So we are dealing with the 1,000. So we're in the 1,000 spot. So that's why we're moving in 3 places. So 1, 2, 3, and there's my new decimal spot. So that's 3.84. Just like we got 3.84 liters. Okay. 45 milliliters is how many tablespoons? So we have a conversion link in tablespoons and milliliters. So it says 1 tablespoon is equal to 15 milliliters. One tablespoon is equal to 15 milliliters. It's my conversion pair. Going across. Excuse me, not Corona. I was drinking some water. 1 tablespoon is 15 milliliters. And we're asking about 45 milliliters, so it's gonna go on the bottom right. And here's my X. One times 45 equals 45, and divide by the with the only value we have left, 15. So 45 divided by 15 is 3. So you get 3 tablespoons. 45 milliliters is 3 tablespoons. And it's just if you couldn't see that right off the bat, 15 times 3 is 45. Moving on to number 7, 180 pounds is equal to how many kilograms? Well, we have a conversion that links those two. Says that 1 kilogram equals 2.2 pounds. Please do not get this confused, or do not mix this up and say 1 pound is equal to 2.2 kilograms. I see that a lot. You definitely have to make sure you have this conversion right. 1 kilogram is 2.2 pounds. Okay, so that's my conversion pair. So it's gonna go on the left side, 1 kilogram, 2.2 pounds. I'm asking about 180 pounds, so that's gonna go on the bottom right because I'm matching my units up side by side. And so I'm solving for kilograms. Cross multiply. 1 times 180 equals 180 divided by 2.2, the only thing we have left. $180 divided by 2.2 is 81.8 kilograms. 81.8. 81.8 kilograms. And then the last one, 75 kilograms is how many pounds? So now we're doing the opposite. 1 kilogram equal to 2.2 pounds. But instead, 75, since we're talking about kilograms, is gonna go at the top right because we're matching the units. So I'll do it down here. 75 times 2.2 is 165. 165 pounds. The other, the way that I was doing it with the proportion, so you have 1 kilogram um, equals, it's the same thing. This, this right here is the same thing as this cross. It's just that we have the cross that looks like it's combining everything. But this is the same exact thing. You're still gonna cross multiply. But this way is the way that I was doing it, where you did it like this: 1 times x equals 2.2 times 75, and then 1x equals 2.2, which is 2.2 times 75, which is 165. And we had to isolate x. We had to get x on the side by itself. So we do the opposite: divide by 1, divide by 1, and you end up with 165. You end up with x equals 65. So it's the same thing. I just didn't do it this way, but this and this, same thing. So that is it for the basically basic tutorial on how to do the conversions using what was given, using the conversions that you have. So you always, with your conversion pair, if you're going to do the cross, you put your conversion pair on the left side of the cross.